Hey guys, what's going on? This is Blair, Forrest here, and welcome to the first Ship Happens episode. Paul, super great to see you and hear from you again. This is officially the first episode, and I had to get the one and only on, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Blair. Good to be here. Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting. Episode 1. Oh, gee.
we're coming in hot, and I think what I wanted to kick it off with, you have such a unique career, and obviously we're doing tons of initiatives right now. So I've got to see a lot of that journey in between Laurier and Shopify. Can you just walk us a bit about the story? Because I think where you got to inside of Shopify is such a unique role and how you're impacting so many businesses. So how did this all start?
Yeah, it's funny. How do you distill it down? Like, the longer you work, the harder it gets to have like a real summarized message. But I guess I'm a marketing all-rounder. I recently had to Google, is full stack marketer an actual thing? Because I think I know full stack developer is. I was like, does that make sense, or is it just garbage for marketing?
Right.
You know, it seems like it's a real thing. So that's what I call myself now. Because I've worked in companies with hundreds of thousands of employees. I've worked at startups with 5 employees. I've lived and worked in 6 countries. I'm from Australia, worked in the UK. I've lived and worked in the US, in Canada, in France, in Hungary. So kind of all over the place. My first real good job was at Disney. So that was kind of amazing. It was probably the coolest place I ever worked. Incredible company, built obviously around storytelling and franchises. And you see so much of that emulated by other businesses today. They kind of built that playbook like decades ago. I sort of started there and kind of stumbled into that after doing marketing at university. Did that for a while, then did a master's degree, then kind of got into the whole startup scene. I had my own startup with a bunch of friends who I used to work with at Disney.
Right.
And we basically decided we want to make a company, make it successful, and sell it back to Disney.
Okay. I love the game plan.
So that was our goal. Yeah, we tried it. We built something pretty good. I think we're a little bit off on timing and technology, so it didn't quite pan out as we planned, but it definitely was an amazing learning experience.
What was the product, Paul?
So it was the first product was an online virtual world for kids called Space Heroes Universe. So if you'd ever played Club Penguin when you were a kid,
Yep.
It was kind of like that, but set in space.
Interesting.
So, big multiplayer online game, fully child safe, compliant for privacy, great experience. It was a freemium product, but it was a really interesting lesson. Like, moving over to Canada, like Canadians love that expression. You got to skate to where the puck is going by Wayne Gretzky,
Right.
Which I'd never even seen a game of hockey in my life before I moved over here. But it's a great expression, and it makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because too often it's easy to go to where the puck is, but then by the time you get there, it's gone somewhere else because it's moving too. So, our problem with the product that we built was we built it in Flash. This was like 2009.
Was this pre Club Penguin or post Club Penguin?
It was post. It was just at the same time
Right.
around them. Yeah. So
The timing.
it was tons of these games kind of building up. But we built it in Flash, which worked really well. But then, Steve Jobs infamously came out and said how much he hates Flash and kind of killed it. And then the other thing that happened was also an Apple innovation, iPhone and an iPad. In the like when I was at Disney, we would have mobile games. They would cost like £5 per game, per device. So if you had like a Nokia 4310 or whatever that might be, you would pay £5 to get Mickey Mouse's like whatever game, like a little platform game.
Whoa.
That's just what people paid, like upfront, just to buy the game. And the devs also had to build hundreds of iterations of every game. So it wasn't just like, I need to build an Android one and
Right.
an iOS one. I need to build the Nokia 4310, the Nokia 5310, the Nokia 5320. They were all different screen sizes and like specs. So it was expensive to build them. But people paid for it. Then, freemium sort of started to come along, Angry Birds, and then suddenly no one's paying for anything. Like 99% of consumer game players pay zero.
Right.
And the only reason these games kind of tend to work is whales pay hundreds of thousands of dollars per month to kind of win in them, which is a weird situation. So those headwinds kind of damaged that. We tried to pivot into mobile, didn't quite work, and so then I did a bunch of other startups, mentoring for startups, and then came into Shopify. So I wanted to get into something that wasn't quite so startup-y and risky, but still fast-moving, fun, forward-thinking. And so Shopify seemed to be the right fit. So that's how I ended up here.
Interesting. And what did you notice when it came to how a startup thinks versus how a company like Shopify, which is obviously much grander in its infancy, how do they think about marketing and growth compared to like a really early stage startup, which comes with all of its risks and all the fun or not so fun things about joining a company of that early age?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's it's kind of just a maturity thing and a necessity thing.
Right.
Like I was talking to a guy actually earlier today who's working at a very large telco and he's been in big companies for years and was keen to get into startups. And I'm like, really? Are you sure about that? Like, because it's quite different.
Right.
And then he was saying startups and scale ups interchangeably, and I'm like, no, there's a difference there as well. And I was saying, okay, when if it's like a real startup, like 5 or 10 or even like 30 or 40 people, it's kind of the Wild West. And he was wanting to get into marketing roles. And I'm like, basically, if you joined a startup, you would be like everything marketing. You would one day be doing brand, then you'd be doing email marketing, then you might be doing demand generation, then you're writing some content, then you're figuring out how to do an event. So it's kind of fun in that way, in that you get to do a bit of everything and be a jack of all trades. But of course, you also feel like you're a sort of a master of none. And then as you get up to the scale up, if it's say like 100 or 200 people, then it starts to specialize and people have more specific roles. And then by the time you're in a company of Shopify, like thousands of employees, everyone's very specialized. Like it's still much more innovative than a 100-year-old legacy company. But I think that's also a cultural thing. A lot of the fundamentals of marketing are always the same. It's you have to generate awareness, you have to generate interest, drive action, and that's kind of it. Like that's it at the end of the day. Like you're just trying to facilitate a transaction.
And
Ultimately, all of the things you do are trying to get someone to do something.
well, that's what I was going to ask, because obviously you've seen it with multiple startups, your own company, and then also Shopify. Has there been any patterns that, from a marketing perspective, went right or went wrong in terms of, was there consistencies with the type of marketing that you saw work for an early stage company in terms of tapping into whatever there was, their first customers, trying to get profitable? What did you end up noticing, if anything, that worked and worked really damn well?
I think a lot of it is its product and the whole product market fit idea. So a few weeks ago, I had a guest speaker at a class I was teaching who's Martin Passeri, who's the CEO and founder of Applyboard,
Yeah,
which is an incredible Canadian company that's
the
doing
best.
phenomenally well. Multi-billion-dollar valuation now. I think 1,600 employees. Didn't even exist 10 years ago. And he was telling me that in their history, they've spent less than $500,000 on marketing ever, like on paid activations. They have hundreds of thousands of customers and users, like tens of thousands of partners. How did they do that? It's like, well, and the way, how did he say it? I'm trying to make sure I quote him correctly. Basically, if you want to build $1 billion company, solve $1 billion problem. That's it. So like they didn't build some whiz bang tech and think, okay, we built this tech and we're great at it. Like now we need to go find a customer and find a market and see how that works. That's never going to work. What they did was they found a problem, they defined the problem, and then they built the product around that problem. And then they didn't need to do marketing because people just came to them and wanted it and started talking about them. And it was so much better than the status quo experience that was the marketing. And people started writing about them and talking about them. And the way this business is structured is basically as an affiliate network.
Right.
So that obviously becomes like your marketing channel. And they do have marketing teams that create content and do events and things like that, but they're not out there buying tons of Facebook and Google ads, which everyone else does.
Well, and we see it a lot, especially in like whether it's the Amazon or e-commerce space. Like, no amount of marketing can fix a shitty product at the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you can put as much money you want behind it, but if the product isn't great, it doesn't matter how much activation you can do. You're throwing it at a wall that will never really kindle. And you can sure spend a
Mm-hmm.
lot, but at the end of the day, if the product doesn't really hit what the customer needs, you're going to be in a pretty leveraged position.
Yeah, and there's always an opportunity to storytell and to market yourself, or without sort of spending money. Like it's incredible the amount of times you'll see an ad for a product, or even just like a product listing on an Amazon category page or on a story, like, why did they pick this photo? Like,
Right.
this is terrible. It's badly lit, or it's weird, or it makes the product look strange and has this terrible description, and you could tell there's been some kind of like Google Translate to describe the product
Yeah.
because there's emoji in the listing that don't make sense. It's like, have a really beautiful photo that you could take yourself. It's not that hard. Like, and there's tools that you can use to make it better, and describe the product well in a way that really matters to who the person that's going to buy the product thinks. And then you have all the extra info, and that's there's so many people don't even do that.
The
So
bare
when you
necessity.
come across the product that does it, it's like, oh, this is pretty good. Looks like the one. I can trust this.
So then adding to that point then, Paul, obviously what I think is such a unique insight for you, and we have a lot of businesses that, whether they're e-com businesses and then they have their own e-commerce store, or they're Amazon sellers, or they work for a larger brand, Shopify is obviously one of the biggest conversations. And naturally, for what are you seeing right now in terms of what's happening in that space? So in terms of what you're seeing on the Shopify side and all the businesses, whether it's Shopify, Shopify Plus, where are these brands going? Because where we see it, I see a lot of these storytellers, whether it's like the Gymsharks of the world and these like multi-billion-dollar companies, or a Hush Blankets that race to the top. Are you seeing a lot of businesses enter Shopify? How are they positioning? What are you seeing from like the pulse of what's happening on that side?
Yeah, I think it's still happening, and there's still just so much opportunity. What was the stat that I was reading? Like, only like I think e-commerce is going to be was it $5 trillion this year, and that's 20% of total commerce. That's globally, worldwide. So it's still only 20%. And obviously, the pandemic happened. Lots of people had to shop online. Now it's kind of better. Like, people are kind of going back into stores, but it's not, people are always going to want to buy things online and offline, and so omnichannel is a big thing for a lot of sellers, whether they're small or national. I think there still seems to be so much opportunity. Like, so often you hear people say, "Ah, it's too late. Like, all the things have been
Right.
done," but then you just keep reading about companies that didn't even exist 12 to 24 months ago and now just crushing it. Like, I spoke to one company this week. It's a beauty brand, only launched in 2019, seven-figure GMV now. Like, they didn't even exist, and now they're there. And they've really got a very specific audience that they're going after. They're very limited in which products they sell. They're not widening their product portfolio. They're being very cautious in how they go about with their product, and then they're just being really, really methodical in their tech stack and their marketing. And so I talk a lot about tech stacks, and it's really just going down that funnel. Like, everything's like awareness, draw in traffic, engage them on your storefront, whatever that is, convert them, try to upsell them, and then try to keep them as a customer and re-engage them. And you could just work your way up and down that funnel and just say, maybe we should focus on how do we get the order size to be up a little higher? Or, no, we've done a bit of that. Like, how do we get people to refer a friend? Like, what could we do that would do that? So just looking up and down the funnel. So as you start, it's just compounding the success that you get.
And are you even seeing that with like and obviously because of a tech stack, and you're hyper involved in terms of like apps and what people are actually utilizing from an e-commerce store, is that changing? Are you noticing any trends of like what people are adding to their tech stack on Shopify, whether it's advanced data pieces or it's a subscription piece or something else that we're missing? Is there anything that 24 months ago just weren't getting activated and now there's a huge spike in demand?
I think what's happening now is conversion. So on store experience, whatever that store is. So making it better. So like you put a lot of effort into getting traffic to come there. You don't want to lose that. So like whatever you can do to optimize that. So get them more engaged, keep them from leaving, make sure they find the right things. Like if they came from a specific channel, then ideally the storefront tailors to that channel. Like, oh, hey, Paul, you doesn't know my name, but like, hey, you came from like this video about like this thing, then we're gonna like tailor it around that product. Whereas if I just came from some other search term, then that would maybe slightly differently. So that was one example I was giving. It's almost like try to treat your digital store experience like a sales associate in a shop. Like imagine you have a shop and you have a young person that's your sales associate and they're great. Well, why are they great? They're great because when the customer comes in, they greet them and like, hey, how's your day going? Like, let me know if you need any help. So it gives them like it welcomes them, it assures them. And then as they see that I'm browsing, like, I don't know, like say it's a sporting goods store and I'm looking at tents because I want to go camping in the summer. Oh, you're looking, are you gonna need camping plan? Like, is there anything I can help you with? And open that conversation. Yeah, I want to get a tent, but I don't know if I need this and that. And so recommendations, and then I'm not sure about this. What do you think? And the store associate can say, well, this is made of this material. It's good for that. This is made of that material. People like this one for like short trip. People, that's what a store associate does, and they're great at that. You can do all of that with technology. Like you
Right.
can welcome people, you can tailor things, you can give them assurance, you can give them reviews. Like Hush Blankets does an amazing job of this. Like when you go to this, like these products cost hundreds of dollars. No one's just going to buy a blanket for $300 on a
Right.
whim. They want to know that it's good. So there's like a lot of pre-sale information. There's reviews. People send in photos of their blanket, talk about how great it helps them sleep. That's the sort of stuff that you want to know before you spend $250 on a blanket.
Well, and that's a good point. Like I was, it was one of the guys, and Hush will be on this too. So I'm gonna get to be able to pick their
Nice.
brain.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that they were doing, and I saw it, but I didn't see it through them. I saw it through a customer, I think reposted on Facebook, where they're going through it and they actually reply and say thank you on Instagram to anyone they can find that was buying the product. So like they'll, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not like a response activation. It's they bought it. They'll actively try to find their Instagram and manually send them a message saying, hey, like XYZ, thank you so much for buying. And like that extra step, I think can literally be a make or break on how a customer, whether they buy from you one time or they become like a brand evangelist for you, which is obviously the momentum that you want if you want to scale a company past 6, 7, 8 figure company, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And finding ways to scale that, like definitely, like post sale experience, like following up, whether it's you're a small, tiny store and you're just selling a few items, or you're selling a lot. So, like a few months ago, I bought like like a model plane kit for my son, and just from some random hobby store. I just bought it online and they shipped it to me. And there was a nice handwritten note from the store owner
Right.
saying, "Hey, thanks, Paul. Hope you enjoy like blah blah blah, like whatever." It was just a nice personal touch. Would have taken 10 seconds
Right.
for them to do, but it made me think more of that and think, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I got on their mailing list. So now if it ever becomes time to buy another one, then it's probably where I'll go, like, oh, I'll just go buy these guys. Even the midday squares, I don't know how they do that, but they're well known for their founder. Pretty sure he's still doing it. Like he sends a handwritten
Oh
note
yeah.
to every first time customer. These guys have thousands of orders, so I have no idea how he does it. He probably sits there every night from like 11 till midnight just writing quick notes out. But like, why not? Like, and then it becomes a thing that people talk about, and it really sort of sets you apart, and everyone begins to recognize you. So yeah, and then of course there's tools that automate like handwriting, and there's tools that automate social scraping. I was just reading about an app the other week. I think that was their whole thing. Like they find hashtag references to your product and then serve it up in some kind of queue so you can see the sentiment. Oh, this is Paul saying he loves this blanket that he just bought. So cool. And then I can route it to a rep,
Mm.
and then someone can reply back or send a message or do whatever. Like, hey, Paul, thanks for that. Here's 10% for your friends.
See
Blah blah
what
blah.
I what I love about someone like Midday Squares or like the Instagram idea, it's and I'm getting to become like this firm believer because and maybe it's just because we're in the marketing space, the idea of like these automation tools, I can almost read it like my backhand when I can see like a cold email that comes automated versus something that comes creative because I get so many of these random cold DMs. And I think it's this idea of like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
scaling the unscalable. There's something really
Yeah.
unique about this that I know I could get an automated message, and yes, it will probably end up working. But this idea to actually think that if it is midday squares, he actually sat there and handwritten a note. Like my handwriting is atrocious, so I don't know if
Yeah.
that's my game plan. But that idea I think is just so thought provoking. Of it's 2022, you could definitely do a very custom email blast or a text message or whatever it is that could make your lives 1,000 times easier. But it's this idea of like how do you scale this unscalable concept, which is like a olden aged handwritten note, which seems absurd thinking about a scalable e-commerce store, right? Which I think is super cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
What are your thoughts, Paul, when it comes to text marketing? So obviously, this was the other one of the things when it comes to especially Shopify stores and marketing this is something that a lot of more people are getting to the realm with. And I've had some controversial answers on this. What do you feel about it? And are you seeing businesses use it? Is it too early? What are your thoughts?
Like text messages, you mean, or
Bingo. Yeah.
yeah, so SMS, yeah. I've seen them used like tremendous success. Like it really, and like the 101 is always the abandoned cart kind of message. So try to get people to sort of come in, and then if they ditch you, then you can follow them up with a message. It could be a text, it could be a message on some social platform, it could be an email. Those tend to work pretty well. But then going beyond that to something more sophisticated. So like I've seen brands do all sorts of like knowing when your birthday is. So then actually sending you a birthday message.
Right.
My birthday's coming up next month, so I should keep an eye out on like who actually
does
sends
it?
me something and who doesn't, because I'm sure like most won't, and that's kind of a missed opportunity. People like that. Thinking about seasonal events, seasonal days, like with opt-in permission. Do you want us to let you know about seasonal offers that might be coming up? So I don't know, whatever there's Mother's Day and Father's Day and like Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and the holidays. So getting permission and then letting people know things and being focused. Like I still see a lot of brands. I'm on a lot of mailing lists, and it's funny. Like Old Navy, I know they're a huge company. It's kind of bizarre. Like they always send me the emails, and I tend to respond to them and take advantage of their offers. But it always defaults to like the women's fashion, and I'm like, do you really not know yet that I'm like a man? Like I always buy men's and kids stuff. Like why do the emails kind of automatically skew it? Maybe I have it set wrong or they didn't think about it, but it hasn't really stopped me from buying just because it's good for kids stuff. But yeah, I think like personalizing, using info, listening to customers, and then definitely messaging them. People like if they've given you permission and they want to hear from you. Then as long as you're telling them useful, interesting stuff, then they'll be keen to continue.
Interesting. Okay, very cool. And obviously, when it comes to tech stack, this is something you talk about a lot. And whether we obviously have a lot of these Amazon sellers and Amazon brands, but especially from the e-commerce realm, and whether these brands are transitioning over, I might have enough time for that question too. But what is that optimal tech stack? So when you speak to brands or you speak about strategy, how do you think about that? Is it about a funnel perspective? Is it just kind of a checklist of things that you need? How does a Shopify business or just an e-commerce brand think about what are the, I guess, needs, wants versus like the dire necessities of like food and water that they need to have?
I mean, there's a lot of amazing partners in the Shopify ecosystem, and every now and then, like quite frequently, you'll see someone. Here are the top 10 apps you need to crush it as a Shopify store in 2022. And generally, they're pretty consistent. But the way there might be some differences and perspectives as to which ones are which. But I really look at it from a funnel point of view. Like everything is in commerce is purely a funnel. Like you're attracting people to your storefront, whether that's on Amazon or your Shopify store or in a retail environment or whatever it might be. Like you're doing various activities to get them somewhere. And then once they're at that point, it's all about conversion. So how do you make sure that they feel that they get the information they want, that they find what they're looking for, that they're sort of being guided into this conversion path, using whatever techniques make sense. So if it's like sales time and they're a real price sensitive customer and it's like BFCM, then it could be, hey, today only, like you got 11 hours left to buy this thing, and that's it. That'll work for that type of customer. So making sure that that's there for them. Then I think even things like making the right decision on cross-sell and upsell. If it's a first-time customer, how heavy should you be selling? But if it's a repeat customer and they're coming back for a second time, maybe then you can be a little bit more, hey, Paul, like, why don't you bundle this in, buy two, get one free, or like whatever, or up your order to this and we'll give you a free gift, that kind of thing. So whatever can kind of up your AOV, then making sure that the whole fulfillment process works really well, trying to keep it as fast, clear. I think it's interesting, like the whole passion for fast delivery. I feel like I'm an outlier. Like I don't think I generally need stuff that I order that quickly.
Interesting.
Maybe it's just like I don't like the funniest one. I saw an ad for one of these delivery companies, pretty VC funded, blowing cash on social ads.
Right.
And basically the ad was a picture of a carton of eggs, and the caption was "Need eggs in 10 minutes." we've got you. And I was like, who the hell needs eggs in 10 minutes? Like, seriously, what person on the planet is like, oh, damn it. Like, I don't have any eggs. Like, literally the world's going to explode if I don't bake this cake in the next 45 minutes.
Oh,
Like,
that's good.
can you not plan your life a little bit better and get eggs at the time when you need them? And I know there was just an example of, I mean, I get it for food. Like, yes, I want my food pretty quickly, but I don't necessarily need eggs in a hurry. And even, I think there are a lot of consumers where they do think about what is the environmental impact of such fast delivery? What is the social impact on some guy that's riding a bicycle in the snow to bring you your eggs in 10 minutes? Like, did you really need them? So I think it's, some people do want it. So for them, it could be speed. Maybe that's where I was talking to someone like, why couldn't there be tiers? Like, default is 2 days, but if you're willing to wait longer, well, we'll give you a $5 coupon for your next purchase. So that's fine. I'm not in a rush. And then I'll get the $5 and then I might buy something again. So thinking about like what it is the person wants. And again, it's all about the funnel, like awareness, on-site experience, the checkout, and then the fulfillment, and then after sales, like following up. If you're a small business, what's stopping you from like literally calling every customer if you're doing like 10, 20 sales a week, call them, email them. Like, hey, Paul, how did it go? Just leaving you a quick note. Hope it's great. Any problems, let me know. So few people do that. And it's so easy. And like, why not? And then you could be the midday squares guy doing tens of thousands of sales. I'm sure he's okay filling in those forms at night, however he does it. Someone probably writes the note for him and then he signs.
And then just has to do a little signature at the bottom.
Yeah. I can't imagine he's doing like so many actual notes. Maybe he is. I don't know.
10-minute egg delivery. That's new. That's new. I come from such an instant gratification, so it's such like a different perspective where I need everything pretty quick. I don't need it that quick. Like I think that's a different level of like convenience factor, but I am pretty pressurized of I need something. If I buy it, I want immediate gratification. I think it's a different level of strength to have like the delayed gratification. That if you buy a Old Navy, you're okay waiting 4 to 5 days. Like I just got the Whoop bracelet. It's like a fitness tracker, and I bought it. And it didn't tell me the delivery till after I paid, which I thought was a horrible experience because my expectations were all messed up. Fulfillment time is 7 days. Delivery time is another 8 days.
Okay. So that's a while.
So,
but at least they give you visibility. Sometimes that helps. Like it's better than just you order something and then who knows what happens. And it's like if you ever order anything from Wish, it's like this may or may not arrive
just close your eyes.
in 6 to 12 months. So and then you're like, what is this thing? I can't even remember I ordered this. So
okay. So the last thing I wanted to close off with, Paul, is what are your biggest lessons? Obviously, you've had a tremendous career. I feel like you've done everything under the sun and you've spoken to, it feels like everyone at this point. What are your 2 or 3 major lessons that you've learned, whether it's career-wise, whether it's business-wise, whether it's in the marketing realm? What would you recommend to the listeners?
I think one thing more and more is like ask more questions and listen more. I feel like often people will have questions and they'll think, I wish I want to ask this person that, but she seems kind of busy. So I don't know, maybe I won't. Or like, I want to know what he meant by that. And maybe I'm not, or it could be in anything, in any context of life. I feel asking more questions politely and respectfully is really key because that's people generally, I think, are more willing than you expect to share just their knowledge and wisdom, like whatever it is. Like you want to learn a new sport, you're like, I don't know how to do this. Like maybe I'm not ready. Just ask the person, like, hey, what's this like? Like how would I start? So I feel like that's a good lesson. And then I think like be bold, like in decisions, and don't waste time. I think there's what's that quote? Mary Oliver. I can never get it quite right, but it's basically a poem, and it's like, doesn't everything end at once and all too soon? Tell me, what will you do with your one wild and precious life? And it's such a good thing to think about that. Like, yeah, we've got one life, and like every day is passing, and you don't have to be super productive all the time. But I do think it's important to set yourself goals, work towards those, break them down into what's achievable, and try to make the most of it. Because you don't want to look back and think, damn, I wish I did something when I was just chilling.
Do you have any cool tools that you've used to do stuff like that, or track goals, or track anything in life? Anything you've used that have worked in the past?
I'm so old school. I've tried them all, but like my favorite is just the Notes app.
Really?
It's so easy. Like back in the days before the Notes app, I used to email myself like lists of things to do. I like crossing stuff off
Right.
lists. So like, oh, don't forget to do this weekend.
Like the kitchen
or
fridge
whatever.
magnet type of style.
Pretty much, yeah, like the fridge magnet on your phone. So I just have like a to-do list, and it's basically broken into like now, so ish now in the next few days, and then like later. And so bigger term goals are kind of down there. And yeah, like I like to plan and set goals. I know there's a million apps for it. I find for me they're kind of overkill, but if it helps people, then great.
You'd hate me, but like I have Notion. It's this whole note taking system.
Yeah.
And it's way too technically deep than I think it needs to be, but it has like my entire brain inside of an operating system. So it's like it's really geeky with how it sets up, but it allows it. It's like my magnet on the fridge. It's just a little bit more techie, I guess is the best way to say it.
Everyone's different, yeah. Whatever works. It's like I'm sure everyone's been to a restaurant at one point and you've ordered, and the waiter is just standing there without a pen and paper, and like 10 people are ordering. You're like, there's no way he's going to remember all this stuff, and then he does. Like, some people have that memory. I would be the first person would tell me something, and then the second person would tell me, and I'd already forgotten the first person. I'm terrible with like mental notes, so I'd have to be writing stuff down.
I don't want to take too much of your time up, Paul, but I want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your insights. This kind of short snippet, I think, is going to provide a lot of value for a lot of people, I think, coming from different realms. Last thing, where can they find you, Paul? If they have a question or they're interested in learning more about the Shopify piece, there's probably tons of things that they're learning. And obviously you have the book and you've done some courses in the past. Where can they go to find some of the stuff you do?
The best place would be to find me on LinkedIn. That's probably my most active place. I was commenting with someone, I think, I remember when the first person told me about LinkedIn, like, I don't know, 2006.
Right.
And she's like, you got to try this social network. I'm like, what is a social network? Because even then that was pretty new. And she said, no, it's this thing called LinkedIn, and you can have your own profile. And I'm pretty sure I've used it like every single day for the last 15 years, except maybe like 8 days, for real, when I was like offline, totally off grid or on like a big international flight. Because I love it. It's the place it's where I get most of my news, most inspiration, connect with people. So yeah, Paul Alex Gray on LinkedIn is where you can find me.
LinkedIn, TikTok is like half my day. So between those two, it's a dangerous balance that I'm trying to keep. It's like my professional and personal life blending.
Yeah, yeah, business and pleasure. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate your time. We'll add a bunch of stuff into the show notes, but appreciate it once again, and we'll be hearing from you soon.
Cool. Sounds good. See you.
All right. Thanks, Paul.